Solana family, welcome back to the Crypto ZX channel. You guys are reading the title. We're going to get right in today's update, see what's happening with Solana. At this point, you guys know what's happening across the board. We're seeing a sea of red, as you can see across the board right now. Again, if you watch my HBAR update, if you watch my internet computer update that went live, you guys know exactly what's happening. If not, if you only watch the Solana updates, no problem. We're going to talk about what is happening in this update. So as you can see across the board, everything seems to be down right now on a weekly time frame. If you look at it, there's still some coins that are up because we did see over the past few days some nice price action, but again, majority of the market pretty much tumbling back towards the downside. And again, if you look at it on a monthly time frame, you can see for yourself a lot of red. But Sol right now is currently sitting at $142.68, down 3.1% on the Bitcoin side of things. Market cap 78.5 billion, and the 24-hour trading volume at $8.2 billion. As always, just a quick disclaimer, anything on this channel is not financial advice. Always do your own due diligence and research when you are investing in cryptocurrency. So take a look at this here, guys. Solana continues to lead all layer 1 and layer 2 chains and DApp revenue for the 18th consecutive month. So pretty much, also kind of highlighting that there is a lot of interest when it comes to, DApp's building and obviously a lot of on-chain activity, on Sol. Again, if I kind of go back in time, take a look at on-chain activity, when the price of Sol was around 20-30 bucks compared to where, the on-chain numbers are, it's just a big difference. And of course, now Sol has one spot ETF as well. Yes, right now there is a lot of uncertainty, but you cannot ignore this institutional interest. Look at it for yourself. Solana ETFs has seen net inflows for 13 consecutive days. Daily net inflows as of November 13th, 1.49 million. And if you kind of add everything up, we're sitting at about $370 million, which is insane to think of. Again, if you're looking at the total value locked, of course, it's going to go down when the entire market, usually retraces. You are going to see on-chain numbers, of course, decline. If you're looking at a lot of protocols, you are seeing quite a significant change, not just within the native token, but even in the volume aspect, because there's not much interest. Let's face it, there is not much interest in crypto right now. But let's take a closer look and see, what's happening. Before we do that, as always, just a quick disclaimer, anything on this channel is not financial advice. Always do your own due diligence and research when you are investing in crypto. You can see for yourself as far as the dominance is concerned. Again, something I emphasize on this channel quite a bit, but focus on what we have seen literally over the last 24 hours. We were sitting at 59.6%, saw a major spike up to 60.3%. That was short-lived. When Bitcoin started to pulling down, especially when we closed below the $100,000 for Bitcoin, in terms of the daily candle, you saw the dominance pull down to pretty much where it was prior to the start of yesterday. So again, this right here, in my opinion, is a clear sign of manipulation. But again, for altcoin holders, this is also something you want to also not ignore, because let's say the dominance was still hovering around where it was prior to this major retracement, we would have seen much more red compared to what we're seeing right now. That's something I don't want you guys to forget. But if you're looking at BTC right now, you can see Bitcoin sitting below $100,000. Most importantly, like I said in some of my other updates, Bitcoin closed its daily candle for the first time below $100,000 since June, and that of course is going to have a little bit of negative impact on the price of BTC. And you can see Bitcoin wicked down to $95,700 price point. You can see for yourself. And right now we're currently sitting about $97,452 price point. Again, going back to what we've been talking about on the channel quite some time, that even though we were seeing these bounces, I was saying we're not buying it, and at this point it kind of is showing that the trajectory for Bitcoin is still in the downwards trend, and the sooner this happens, the better it is, in my opinion. And right now, even though we're sitting at about $97,428, maybe we do push back into the 100K territory, but again, if we're not able to close and start pushing back up to some of these levels, there is still more chance, in my opinion, for Bitcoin to start retesting some of these lower levels that we have not seen since April, in my opinion. If you're looking at Sol is of course going to have an Sol is not going to have an exception, based off of what's happening with Bitcoin. And I want you guys to take a look at what has happened with Solana pretty much since September 19th. We were sitting at $253 on September 19th. Since then, the price of Solana has retraced 45%. But again, look at it for yourself. Sold down significantly, but pretty much let's take a look at Sol on an hourly perspective. I want to kind of take a look at that. So see for yourself as you know what we're seeing here. So Solana on November 4th, of course, we know what happened with the broader market. That's when we originally saw the price of Bitcoin, retracing below $100,000. That took the price of Sol down to $145. We actually saw a beautiful bounce for Solana. If you want to put this into perspective, we saw Sol making its way up about 19%. But again, October 11th, this is where the $171 was retested, and pretty much since then, not only did we drop below the monthly low, obviously we set a new monthly low at $138 just a few hours back. Again, a level that we have not seen for quite some time. If you want to put this into perspective, since then we have seen a bounce for Solo about 2.5%, but again, we are below the $150 price point, below the 0.50 Fibonacci support line, and unless we're able to get back above this key range, obviously if Bitcoin is able to push, let's say hypothetically speaking, I just want to think about a realistic outcome. I've said this on my market analysis updates as well, but again, if you did end up missing that, no problem. We're gonna kind of give you guys a little bit of a better perspective as to what I mean. So focus on this move right here. March 7th of last year, when we saw Bitcoin sitting at $73,000, we saw a retracement of about, you could see, 33%. Same thing happened here. See for yourself. I want you guys to pay very, very close attention to this. Look at it for yourself. Bitcoin saw move to $110,000, retracement down to 32%, and now new all-time high just last month in October. And if you put this into perspective, and we talk about like a 30% pullback, it takes us back into the 61.8 Fibonacci retracement level. See for yourself. And this is where I've drew the line. And obviously, this is from my market analysis update from before. So the potential is there. To anyone that thinks that is not realistic, that is still there. And that would still put this price of Bitcoin in this upwards trend, believe it or not. Nothing gets invalidated, even if the price of Bitcoin comes down to this key range. Of course, I would love to see the price of Bitcoin come down to $92,444 and start heading back towards the upside. But if we drop below the 0.50, this is open. This is an open level. As long as we don't drop below 73,400, which is a significant move for Bitcoin, then this upward trend is still invalidated. But if we drop below the 73, then obviously this upward trend gets invalidated. But again, there's definitely still room, and it's still something I do personally believe could happen. Maybe the 4-year cycle no longer is valid. Maybe this is a correction that we're going to see, and then we start seeing things really move. And that's why, like I said, 2026 is going to be a very important year to see how it goes. But downside, from a realistic standpoint, obviously, if we want to get back into the confirmation, so that's all the way at $117,000. But there is a chance, in my opinion, that I'm not writing it off personally. I would love to see the price of a Bitcoin recovering back, but I don't know. There's a feeling that I still have that this could be something we come close to before starting to head towards the upside. So that would be a 12% move towards the downside. Let's just say, we do see. Obviously, usually I'm kind of like, some people say, I'm a little harsh when it comes to technical analysis, but I try to keep it as realistic as possible. So let's say, usually I focus on altcoins, and now obviously even in Solana in this case, I would expect, altcoins to, if Bitcoin's down to go 12%, hypothetically speaking, like 10 to 12%, I would expect, altcoins to go down double. So let's just say, Sol again goes down to 20%. Again, we're speculating. If it were to go down to 20%, and that is obviously if Bitcoin is able to push down to the level that I've just spoken to you guys about, where does the price of Sol, go down to? So 20% would put Sol down to $113 from where we currently are. That's only a 20.8% move. I want you guys to zoom out. Zoom out, take a look at it for yourself. Again, levels we retested this year, and we have seen a massive, bounce since then. But the question now is, some people saying, that might have been the top. That some people are saying that might have been the top, but we need to understand we're seeing major amounts of market shakeouts, volatility. So again, I'm not writing this level off, for $113 for Sol if Bitcoin were to indeed go down to these key levels. I think this is something that could end up happening, and I'm being generous right now, saying it's 20%. Usually, if obviously Bitcoin were to drop 12 to 13%, you would see altcoins going double, sometimes even more. So Could we actually see Sol making its way below $100 price point once again? There's a lot of institutional interest this time around. Inflows are coming in. That's something we want to kind of keep in mind this time around. On-chain activity, nothing is slowing down. There's so much happening for Sol. Again, me personally, not financial. This is not financial advice. Me personally, I'm bullish on Solana. On-chain metrics speak to me. The performance of Solana as a native token, and what it has been able to achieve from a dev side of things, institutional demand, how far the project itself has come. All these solid projects do have bull markets, bear markets. Look at what happened to Ethereum. There was a time where ETH was a couple cents, went to a couple dollars, went back to a couple cents, so on and so forth. And I've seen that wave. If you even go back on to my oldest videos, you'll see where where Ethereum was sitting at that price point. But that does not mean there's no risk factor associated to it. That's one thing a lot of people just completely ignore. When you're investing in crypto, whether it's Ethereum, whether it's Solana, whether it's XRP, whether it's XLM, whatever the case may be, there's always a risk factor associated. But if there was no risk, guess what? Everyone would be driving Lamborghinis. Everyone would be living in mansions. It's just not how life works. But during these times, I think is where, in my opinion, based off of what I've seen in the past, around uncertain times, extreme uncertain times, extreme fear times, is where I think the people that usually do end up doing well are made around times people are that paying attention, because let's face it, retail interest is pretty much at the lowest level that I've seen for quite some time, in my opinion. I can argue that it's the lowest level that we have seen, even in the April, dip that we saw. I think we're actually seeing a lower retail interest right now, which is something that is very, very interesting to see right now. But again, look back to April. This is where we were seeing a lot of fear, and you saw Sol go up 168.4%. So these are things I want you guys to keep in mind right now. Obviously, we do have support built up around here, but significant support as far as that's concerned, $128, as we know. Again, a level we retested just this June. Again, if you want to put this into perspective, that's only about a 9% move from where we currently are. So again, we got to take it step by step. Let me know in the comments what you guys personally think. Do you guys agree with my overall analysis? Do you guys disagree? What are your personal thoughts? Thank you so much for all your support. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the Crypto ZX channel so you're notified every time I make an upload. And yeah, thank you for your support. We'll see you later in Crypto ZX and peace.